And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Conversations Live and Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. But us tuning in on the radio side of WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com. We're glad that you all can be with us. Also, those joining us, of course, through our online affiliates. We're glad you all could be with us as well. Our next guest is someone who really needs no introduction, and someone I'm glad to call a friend as well. I'm talking about LaWanna Bradford of the Bradford Group and the Bradford Group Consulting. I want to talk to her about the year that's been 2023 for her, but also what it's been like for her to look at her journey, her career, and how she's been able to use her platform to educate and inspire, and what she's looking forward to when it comes to 2024. LaWanna, glad to be able to speak with you again. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, Cyrus. Good to see you.
Well, same here, and a lot for us to talk about. You've had quite the year on a lot of different levels, but I want to first of all kind of talk about big picture for you, Lawana, as you kind of look at where we are now at the end of 2023. What has it been like for you to reflect on your career and all that is accomplished for you, especially in this year?
This year has been a quite interesting year from both a personal and professional standpoint. And on my birthday, which is in May, I made a decision to come from behind the brand. So the brand from behind the brand. And that sounds a little odd. Like, what does that really mean? Well, it means that even though my companies, the Bradford Group's over 17 years in business and the consulting arm over 13 years in business, it has its own independent brand, right? But then who is LaWanna? Who is the force behind the brand? And I felt that it was really important for people to hear my message, my story, in order to create a greater sense of, I guess, resonation. Yeah, there we go. With me, um, in order to create and foster the change that I want to see, especially within women. And one of the things that I've shared with you, Cyrus, is the financial crisis facing women. And I talk a lot about it, but people don't know why that's so important to me. And so that's, again, part of my message, part of my platform has been sharing my story, sharing my financial trials and tribulations, how I overcame it, and then introducing the audience to my platform, which is called the R3 system, your personal navigation system. And we all
Yeah.
need to be able to have a personal navigation system in our life and in our business.
I'm going to talk more to you about that, Luana. I want to talk about something that you mentioned about uh, the brand behind the brand, because I think one of the conversations we've had several times has been about exactly who you are, right? I mean, I think for a lot of people that are listening and watching this, they have become defined by what they do, right? The title kind of has defined them. That can be good, but it also sometimes I think leaves people not understanding the full version of who you are and what you bring to the tables that you're able to sit at. So, how freeing has it been for you now? I know there probably was some hesitation there, but how freeing has it been for you, Luana, to be able to let people know that you are more than just, we just mentioned the Bradford Group and the Bradford Group Consulting, but there's also being the co-founder of Celebrate You and, the other things you've been able to do in media as well. But what has that been like for you to let people know exactly who you are?
It's been very liberating, and it makes, when you asked me that question, I was thinking back on a conversation you and I had a couple years ago, and you said, "Juan, I see all this great these great things that you're doing, with the company or with Celebrate You, but where's Luana?"
Yeah.
And it took me a while to really come from behind the brand and say, "Okay, I'm ready to show the world. This is Luana. These are
Mhm.
my values. This is what I'm passionate about. This is the indelible mark that I hope to leave behind once this journey has concluded. I want to be a force that has been memorable, but one that truly makes an impact. Because I believe that when you change one life, Cyrus, that you've changed the next generation.
Right.
So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So one of the big highlights for you this year, Luana, was getting the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for your volunteer efforts. Again, a lot of people may not even have realized about your your volunteer efforts. First of all, I want to ask you about that honor. What was it like for you to have your work recognized that way?
That was amazing. Probably one of the highest honors that I could get. From the highest office in the US, to be recognized for over 4,000 hours of volunteer service that was dedicated toward women entrepreneurs. And you're right, most people don't know what I do because I've kept it, very private. So whether it was my work with the Service Corps of Retired Executives, working with Goodwill, and even the work within Celebrate You,
Mhm.
uh, reaching out and providing women with the education, with the tools, with strategies in order to help them secure their place in their respective lane in order to make the impact that they want to have. Because I believe that when women really know where they're going and can I guess get their teeth into it, then not only are they changed, but then the change in the family, the community, the nations, and the world become possible. So
Yeah.
within like Celebrate You, a lot of the branding around Celebrate You is really LaWanna. And so it's again stepping back and letting the world see why these hours of service have been so important to me.
Talking about being of service, though, it has shown up in ways that people have noticed, Luana, and that is one of the ways is through what we mentioned with Celebrate You. I think for people who have kind of watched that journey, going from just being, a group on social media to actually becoming more of a movement. That has been one of the great things that people have been able to see that you do with, in particular, with female entrepreneurs. But why was that work so important for you? I know it's something that, especially during the pandemic, became a very big part of what people got to see from you. But why has it been so important for you to make sure that you are not only pouring into female entrepreneurs, but getting them to understand the importance of celebrating themselves?
It was important to me, and it is important to me because women and men often, I mean, we're juggling in so many hats, and sometimes we get so consumed with life that we forget that we are actually the life. And when we're able to step back and love ourselves, good, bad, and indifferent, throughout the tsunamic episodes in life, I think that's where our strength lies. And as women, I don't think we should minimize what we've gone through. I think it's important that we share our stories and that through those stories, we can be messengers of hope and inspiration to our peers, but more importantly, the next generation that's
Hmm.
looking to find themselves and find their way. And I also think it's important for women to not minimize their voice, to be okay with voicing your truth, whatever that may be. And the only way that I could do that, I think, in an impactful way was to demonstrate it. Every day when I'm showing up within Celebrate You. And some conversations, as you know, Cyrus, are not the most comfortable. But if we want to see change, we have to be willing to have a seat at the table and be a part of the conversation.
Yeah. I want to talk about one word that has, I think, become a word of 2023. The one is worthiness, right? And it's shown up in a lot of different ways. I think for entrepreneurs in particular, sometimes, we all go through that, as you were mentioning, men and women, of feeling worthy, of feeling like what you're doing means something. But I think in particular, especially female entrepreneurs, they have that question of, am I worthy of this? Can I really have this? What has it been like for you to ask and answer that question for yourself, Luana, but also to get others to realize their own worth and value as well?
Yeah, I think women, well, especially with me coming out of the STEM arena, you're in a male dominated, lane anyway. And I found for myself that when I was showing up, I was trying to show up more in that masculine energy
Mm,
because that seemed to fit the feeling of the room. But I was never at peace. I was never truly fulfilled. And it was almost like trying to force a square peg in a round hole. But when I was able to say, it's okay for LaWanna to show up as the feminine energy that she is, still intelligent, still a contributor, but not parroting or trying to emulate a man in this position, then it's okay. And I think that when we don't, when we're unable to celebrate again who we are authentically, then we start to question, am I worthy of being in the room, of being part of the solution? And then it goes to another step. If I'm questioning my worth, how does that translate to the prices that I set on my products and services?
Mm, yeah. It's such a great point and such an important question and point for our audience. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, you are watching Cyrus Webb Presents, but listening to Conversations Live. My guest today is LaWanna Bradford. You know her as the COO of the Bradford Group, but also she's the founder of the Bradford Group Consulting. We've been talking to her about the year that's been 2023, some of her achievements. There's more for us to discuss, but also how she's been able to use her platform for others as well. At the end of our broadcast, we will be able to let you all know how to stay connected with LaWanna and all the great things she has going on going into 2024. LaWanna, another thing that comes up this year that you've been doing now for a while, though, is LaWanna Bradford, the media personality and the host. Even though I don't see you using that title a lot for yourself, but you are a media personality. I want to talk about what that's been like for you because that has been something that's new for you as far that you've added to what you've done. But what has it been like for you to embrace that in the different things that you do, like financial raw talk, and even giving a platform for authors? What has that slash behind your name been like?
It's been an amazing ride. I'm growing and learning in this space, and
Hmm.
it is relatively new. I started it in 2020 to actually have my actual TV show. So taking some of my Facebook lives and then translating it to TV. And how that started was someone saw what I was doing for Women's History Month in 2020. And the theme was Choose to Challenge, which is actually now the title of my TV show. And at that time, I interviewed 21 women from 5 nations talking about women's rights, the right to vote. That was during the centennial vote for women in the U.S. And really realizing that even though we are in different countries, women have very much the same issues, concerns, and I felt it was just a great way to message that. Well, someone uh, with another network actually saw the show and asked if I would be willing to bring that show, bring that platform onto their network. And from there, the Choose to Challenge was born. I started to do mental health awareness conversations, and that was amazing because I was just received a certificate of recognition from the National Association of Mental Illness for all of the work that I've done around promoting conversations about mental wellness, which 5 6 years ago was never even something on my mind, Cyrus. So it's just rewarding for me to realize that when we show up in our truth, that our talents and our gifts make a way for us, and doors will open that we didn't even expect would open. And so that's how now I come to having three shows: Raw Business and Financial Raw Talk, Choose the Challenge, and then the Power of the Pen Show, which is targeted at authors.
Yeah. So that gives you an opportunity to reach different audiences, LaWanna, but also, of course, be able to widen your own base. There are so many people when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. There are so many things that we're told, and it can get frustrating for people who are trying to do it the quote unquote right way, right? Because some people will tell them you need to focus on one thing. Other people will tell them, no, you need to diversify. Other people will tell them you need to be on this platform. Some will say you need to be on this one. Some would say no, you need to drive everything to your website. There's so much information out there, and I bring that up because I have gone against the norms when it comes to building my own brand and what I do. But you haven't been afraid to do that either, and I want to talk about where the courage comes from because I think there are so many people who respect you, LaWanna, because you're not painting yourself or allowing yourself to be painted into a box. Where did that courage come from to be able to do things your way, and what has it been like for you to see that pay off?
I think it comes from my father, and just being having pride in who we are as a family and the values that our name stands for, and being willing to stand in that truth, whether it's in my business life or my personal life. I never wanted people to see me on the personal side and then see me on the business and think, wow, these are two disparate personalities. I am who I am. And obviously there's a professional, space and how you govern yourself, but what you see is my truth. And I'm not afraid to speak that truth. And I think that is what has helped me to kind of flex the brand muscles, because my name, the company name, the Bradford Group, is my name, right? So protecting that and protecting how people see it was very important. But now it's a little more frightening, because now, as I said, the brand coming from behind the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like now LaWanna Bradford is coming from behind the Bradford Group. Who is she? How does she show up? What does she stand for? What are her values? Um, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And you mentioned your father, and we've gotten to see a whole lot of him, on social with you. And family is something that is very important to me, and I know for a lot of our audience out there, Lawana, that they, family is a big part of their why. But I was curious about something that you mentioned, because when you talk about what your name stands for, I think for people out there who are watching you and they've seen all the different things you've been able to do, a lot of them struggle to get one thing off the ground. The fact that you've been able to diversify what you have and build your base the way you have is so commendable. But talk to us about that first step, because I'm sure you get the question a lot, dealing with professionals a lot, about how you start or how did you begin the journey. What do you normally tell them, regardless of whether we're talking about media or something dealing with mortgage, or regardless of what the area may be? What do you normally tell them about the importance of that first step?
I tell them it's important to know what it is that you want to do, how you want to show up in the world, and
Mhm.
what solutions are you bringing to the table. Because when we're in business, we're actually solution oriented. That's what we do. We solve problems. And being able to articulate that in a way that your target audience resonates with you. I think that's the most important step. And then secondly is, why does that matter? Why is this problem so important for you to address? And what makes you the expert or the one to be able to address that problem? I think if you're able to answer those two questions, and it evokes within you such a strong emotional tie, then you're on the right path. But if you are doing something and there's no emotional connection to it, that it doesn't keep you up at night, you don't wake up thinking about it, it doesn't excite you in any way, then you're playing with the role of business. Maybe you are sick and tired of being at work, right? You're tired of reporting to someone else, but really you're not called to be an entrepreneur. But sometimes individuals think, well, let me leave one and jump over here, but it's not really their passion. And it's okay to be an employee. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. And I
Right.
think we're hearing today, it's like, oh, you shouldn't work for anyone else. Well, if we're entrepreneurs and we're doing things right, we're helping to fuel the economy by what? Employing other people.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Such a great point. And I think too, as you were talking, I thought about it brings up an interesting dynamic, because I think all of us, but in particular entrepreneurs, we have a balancing act of confidence and humility, right? Because I think we have to be able to know what we're doing. We have to take in that knowledge and and know what makes us stand out in our area, whatever that may be, but also the humility to know that we are all still learning. What has that been like for you to balance, to be the authority that you are, Luana, but not being afraid to keep learning, to keep growing and pouring into yourself?
That's huge, Cyrus, because it's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Hmm.
And you don't want to cross over into the arrogant lane. And for me, it's I am who I am as an entrepreneur of over 30 years because of the learning environment, from whether it's my team, whether it's my customers. My customers help inform me on what products to put out there, on how to communicate with them, on how to keep them engaged. So it's important to have that humility to know you don't know it all. You may be a subject matter expert in a specific lane,
Mm.
but there's so much we don't know. And when we lean on our team and we lean on the industry experts or our clients, I think we become a richer entrepreneur and are able to truly make the impact and influence that we hope to have in life.
Yeah, such a great point. Again, for those who are just tuning in, welcome. You all are listening to Conversations Live and watching Cyrus Webb Presents. LaWanna Bradford is our guest for this segment. We're talking to LaWanna about the year that's been 2023, what it's been like for her to reflect on the highlights of her year, but also her success in business and building her own personal brand as well. You may have heard her at the beginning of our conversations talk about her 3 R's. We're going to get more into that a little bit later, and also remind you all how you can stay connected with LaWanna and all that she's doing. LaWanna, I want to talk about yourself for a second, celebrating you, because I think as you are the co-founder, as I mentioned, of the group and the movement that is that, with everything that's been going on, and you've kind of let us in behind the curtain this year on social media about some of the things that's happened, the highs and lows, both personally and professionally, things that have gone on with family, but also, of course, even what you've been doing this year as well. How important has it been for you to make sure that you're not forgetting yourself? Because I think a lot of times, and I've been thinking a lot about this myself personally, that I'm not very good at, I don't really know how to do it. I'm trying to figure out how to take out time for myself, because for me, taking out time for myself includes work. So, because I like doing the things I do for work. So reading a book is not just reading a book; it's thinking, "Oh, I'm going to reach out to this author." I'm like, "No, Cyrus, just read the book." So, but how important has it been for you, LaWanna, to make sure that you, in building what you're building and taking care of others and pouring into others, that you're not forgetting yourself?
That's huge, Cyrus. And you and I talk about that. The challenge for individuals like you and I, where we love what we do, we forget that we haven't pulled back, right? And
Mhm.
allow our cups to be replenished because for me, what I do every day doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
It just, I'm in my purpose, but I realized, especially in taking care of mom and dad during the last year, that I have to pull back. I have to find a way to refresh and renew so that I can come back and be that support that they need. But also so that I don't break in the process. I know you've often, shot me a note, how are they doing? And then you're like, hey, but make sure you take care of you.
Hmm.
And I used to always think, well, that's what I'm doing. But no, you have to consciously
Yeah.
schedule time to
Yeah.
say, I am pulling away for this amount of time. And what I got to do this year, Cyrus, which was so great, I did one of my bucket list items from my childhood. It was a childhood
Mm.
bucket list. And for those of you who remember Flipper, it was a show about a dolphin. And I always wanted to swim with the dolphins. And I did that this summer with my niece and nephew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just so huge for me because it made me realize I've had that since I was a childhood since my childhood and I haven't done it yet.
Mm.
What's up with that?
Right. Right.
Right?
Yeah, buying at that time is not easy. And I tell people all the time, I think, people, I'm sure, tell you the same thing. People say you make things look easy, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do that. And I've had to consciously start really saying, Cyrus, you have to do it, even though it's not something I feel like I need. I know that it's going to help me be better, and also be at the best level that I can be. So, with that being said, you mentioned the beginning of the conversation, and I just alluded to it a moment ago. One of the things that LaWanna Bradford is doing is basically putting her own stamp out there. So, talk to us about the 3 R's, LaWanna, and what that's been like for you, and then what you hope it's doing for your audience.
The 3 R's are three steps to your personal GPS system, your personal navigation system. And what I realized is during a 4 year period, I had gone through just tsunamic wave after tsunamic wave of
Mhm.
crises, from the mortgage crises to being diagnosed with cancer and everything else in between. And when I was looking back, I wondered, well, what is it that's causing me to be so resilient? Why am I continuing to rise when most people would have been broken with all of this happening in succession? It was just, again, back to back. And I realized that I was actually applying a, a tool or a system, which I didn't know at the time, but hindsight is 2020, and I could see so clearly. And the first is with the R3, it's about refocusing. So it's recommitting to you. It's far more than just a mindset and a belief of what you're going to do, but in the law of attraction, but it's recognizing who you are in this time and space and what you were called to do, and then committing to yourself to that. So it's basically having this marital contract with yourself. And then the second R is reframing, realizing that we are these brilliant creative beings and we are the architects of our lives, and we craft the lane that we're running in. Yeah. And that no one is in our lane unless we allow them in our lane. So we're never competing against anyone but ourselves. So when you really are committed to that lane and you're confident in what you've built, you're not distracted by the left and to the right. And if someone happens to be in your lane that you thought would have been a good fit, it's okay to bless and release them, as Dr. George Fraser says, and move them out of your lane. And the third one is the reconnect. And for me, that was the hardest, Cyrus, because going back to that sense of worthiness, when you've been broken down, feel dejected, feel abandoned, broke, your health in question, you start to question your sense of worthiness. Can I even rise up and compete back on the playing field of life? Which actually sounds funny, because when you think about the second R, if you design that lane, why would you not be able to compete in your own lane that you designed? Right. But that's where a lot of the mindset work comes in, is believing again in yourself, despite the hardships, despite the challenges. It's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay if you've made bad decisions. It's okay if you've thought of doing sometimes some unthinkable things, but you didn't. Mm-hmm. You recognize that, right? We're human. We go through our journey, but then you give yourself permission to step back on the field, to not be willing to sideline yourself, because no one sidelines us, but we do. We sideline ourselves. We choose to be wallflowers in life. So that R3 for me was the hardest piece to say, it's okay, LaWanna, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, dust yourself off. Game, as you say, game on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think too, on the other side of it too, as you were talking, LaWanna, I thought about, we've seen you show up so much, on camera, virtually, but this year you've been really front facing, being in person, being on stage. Just talk to us about that, because, of course, technology is great, and what we've been able to do with this is amazing. But what has it been like for you to be out and about with fellow entrepreneurs, to be able to see that reaction, in person, to feel that energy as you're sharing and pouring into others?
It was terrifying. It's one thing when you are kind of behind the camera and you can't really see anyone, but when you're in this virtual room or actually live on stage, it's very humbling. And you kind of get into that worthiness space. At least I did, wondering, okay, am I worthy to stand up here and to tell my story? How are people going to receive this story? Am I going to be judged? Or people going to see me as being less than because I'm sharing this crystal part of my life? And I had to say, okay, let me feel the fear and do it anyway. And when I did that, that's when I felt myself grow exponentially. That's when the different awards started to come. I received the Next Gen Entrepreneur of the Year Award, as you mentioned, the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. And last week, I just received a call that I am the recipient of the America's Who's Who among entrepreneurs and businesswomen for business individuals, I should say, for 2023 and 2024.
So with all that you've been able to do, LaWanna, and we've talked about, in particular, you were just referencing again some of the highlights of this year. Talk to us about what's to come. As I mentioned at the outset, here we are at the end of yet another year. What are you looking forward to in 2024?
I am looking to, as far as the TV shows, especially Choose to Challenge, take it a little bit deeper. I had the opportunity to interview a member of the Sitco Six, he was a hostage for 5 years. And when we're looking at what's going on in the media, right, I want to be have a platform that's very relevant to what the world is experiencing. And that's a little scary because how are people going to receive that? I don't know, but I think a woman's perspective needs to be a part of these conversations so that we can see improvement. The other is with the R3, going from just the talk and kind of the introduction, now building a learning platform. So it's one thing to understand how to navigate through the R3 as you, the individual. It's another thing when you take those same principles and cascade it down to the people you serve, the price points you set, and your products and services. And how does that look? And how do you use it as basically this plan, do, check, act as you continue to grow and navigating your business? So I'm excited about that. And I have the Momentum Success Academy that's coming about. And that platform will be a part of the Momentum Success Academy. So those are the big things in 2024, along with the book you and I have been talking about, Cyrus.
Mm-hmm.
It is coming out. And the book will be around the R3, but a little bit different, interweaving different stories, mine and others. And also, I'm writing a book with my dad called A Boy from Mayview. And it's about his life story and how he has been an inspiration, not just to me, but to so many others. And even in his recent challenges, by me sharing his story on social media, I'm just amazed at how many people have been inspired and motivated by him.
Right. It has been inspiring for sure, as you have been as well. Again, everyone, LaWanna Bradford has been our guest. We've been talking with her about her extraordinary year, her career, and also what it's been like for her to impact the lives of others through the various mediums she's been able to create and through her own life as well. As we wrap up here at LaWanna, I want to ask you about, I think, one of the big questions. I think as I mentioned at the beginning, so many people are defined by that title. They're defined by the achievement. When people hear the name LaWanna Bradford, what do you want them to think about?
I want them to think about a woman who cares and who will do whatever she can to ensure that that next person wins. That's very important to me, that it's not about my selfish gains, but it's really about reaching to the side and helping that person up, or reaching behind me to make sure the next generation has what they need to succeed.
Love that. Love that. Well, I think you're definitely achieving that. LaWanna, another great conversation with you. It's great being able to catch up for our radio program, Conversations Live, as well as for Cyrus Webb Presents. How can our listeners and viewers stay connected with you?
They can stay connected with me on all things social media by my name, LaWanna Bradford, or if you're following me on Instagram, it's the LaWanna Bradford. And you can always visit our website at Bradford Group MTG. That's Bradford Group MTG.com.
All right. LaWanna, thank you again for the time. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you, Cyrus.
More than welcome. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live and Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.